Hello. Hello. It's still Stan out here. I was trying to do a live on Instagram, but it's just too difficult today to do both. Hopefully, you can hear me and see me because let's close some windows. Because I'm using a slightly different, updated version of Facebook Live. Anyway, Jill Stannard, Naturopath. I've been turning up every day at weekday at 1 p.m. Sydney time to say hello to you from the 13th of March. So today is the first day that I have worn a jumper, which means that, you know, it's autumn. Autumn is here, and I was looking. I've seen some really interesting Aboriginal seasonal calendars, which suggest we have 5 or 6 or more seasons. And a meteorologist also suggested that in Sydney we have um, 5 seasons, and that autumn really only kicks in for April and May. So it's a very after a long summer, we go into the bit more internal time. I've lived in Wellington and London as well as Sydney, and autumn is very different there. The days get really sharper, coldness quite early. What I loved about the UK in autumn was the big, crunchy leaves underfoot, the golden leaves. I could remember walking kind of, calf high through leaves, and I really loved it. It really appealed to me. We don't get a few soggy leaves in Sydney. It's not quite the same. The seasons are not quite as pronounced in the same way. Autumn is a time when we start to take care of our lungs, which is kind of interesting considering what's going on in the world at the moment. It's the time we want to bring more warmth to our lungs. And probably one of the pantry favourites I have for bringing warmth to the lungs is cinnamon. So I'd suggest this is a great time of year to start cooking with cinnamon. It's great to make some pantry spice tea with a few cinnamon quills, maybe a slice of orange, some ginger, and any other spices you like in it. Maybe you like cardamom or a little bit of aniseed. If you can hear something in the background, it's the birds. So look around you and see what is different in your world at the moment. Is it just deciduous trees changing colour, starting to drop leaves? Is there slightly different kind of wildlife happening? What are you noticing most? We're actually unfortunately noticing rats in our neighbourhood, which is not so nice. The rats are telling us they're starting to get cold. They want to find some warmer places to live. And I don't necessarily blame them for that. I just wish they'd do it somewhere else. So I came to the realisation that autumn is my favourite season, even if it's a short one. It's a very transitional season. And where the transition from winter to spring is probably the most popular one. And spring, you get that rush of energy. You can get a spring fever, you can get a spring high. Maybe it's to do with your skin getting more sun activity and getting more vitamin D. So vitamin D, even though we call it a vitamin, it's actually a hormone. More light is also going to impact our melatonin levels, and both of those things make us feel pretty happy. The transition from summer to winter isn't so loved by people. I tend to think that extroverts love summer. There are a few introverts who love winter, and most of us are transitional people. So I'm going to share with you some ways that I'm really embracing autumn, and because of what I love about autumn. They are, firstly, the return of porridge. My internal clock tells me when it's time to eat porridge and to go from my homemade muesli mix to go to porridge. My mind time clock is always telling me, in March it's time for porridge, but it's not till now. It's not till April that it's cool enough here in Sydney to want to eat it. So this is porridge week. the quick tip for making porridge. And you mightn't have been a porridge person before because you haven't had the time. So what you can do for the porridge, my tip is to soak it overnight in a pot with some water. If you forget to do that when you first wake up in the morning, and maybe you're going to your kitchen to make a warm beverage, then put some oats and maybe some sultanas if you like them, and cover them with boiling water. Put the lid on and just let it sit there for 5-10 minutes or longer if you've got it. Then when you actually cook it, you got to be really careful with porridge because it will stick. It needs a really low heat. So bring it to a simmer, put it down to a low heat. If you've got a stovetop that's not particularly low, then it's worth investing in a cheap heat diffuser mat. Then I'll probably let it simmer for 5 minutes. Make sure the lid's back on, stir it a few times, put the lid on it, turn the heat off. And while it kind of cools down enough to eat, then it's got another 5-10 minutes in the pot. So porridge, love porridge. I love the warmth of bed. This is the beginning of romancing the bed season. And I would say, as a woman of a certain age, it's actually a joy to feel cold enough to want the warmth of bed. Enough said about that for this video. Yeah, and also too, feeling a bit chilled when you're outside, but on a sunny blue sky day, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin just feels delicious. We take the heat and the summer, particularly in this part of the world, for granted because we have quite a bit of it over summer, and we take it for granted. So it's only when the weather begins to change that we begin to notice how delicious it feels. Hello, Helen from Greytown. What's the weather like there today? Is it very autumnal? Because I'm talking about autumn. Okay, so I love that deliciousness. I like the return to more internal energy. So spring may be about being out in the world, and the putting the clocks back, the slight chill in the air, to me are all about a more internal life. The desire to journal becomes stronger, particularly to kind of stay a bit longer in bed in the morning and to write. It's time. We always need to move our body at any season, but it's also the time to be a bit more in the realm of the mind and the realm of the imagination rather than just being out there and physical in the world. I love that. So I actually like that transition. I like having a bit more time and space. I don't mind the longer nights. I've got to say that my favourite time to be in Europe is in early autumn. It is often before the leaves start to drop. Most of the tourists have gone home, but the weather is still warm and people are still happy. Who knows whether I'll be making it to Europe this time. Helen says it's very autumnal with lots of leaves to kick on lunchtime walks. So I was just saying how much I miss having big bundles of leaves to kick, and that was one of my absolute joys of living in London or living in Europe for a year and a half when I was quite young. Oh, those were the days. No, they're not. We are living in interesting times, so I'm encouraging you to, rather than curse the weather, to embrace the weather, to notice what the changes are, a bit of a mindfulness exercise. Notice those changes around you. Think about what you are enjoying about this season. And kind of one thing I've actually enjoyed about having a little bit more inside time is that it's a different energy to inside time in summer. So the summer that we've had, I would describe the inside time as a lot of it being really frustrating, either because it's been too hot outside or too hot or too smoky outside for us. So it's kind of being forced inside against your will. Whereas now that kind of literal turning inwards can be quite a joy. Jane just said my favourite time to be in Europe is before I die. Well, that's very, very ironic. Very, very ironic. Let's send our love and wishes to those people in Europe and in the rest of the Northern Hemisphere who are really struggling right now. New Zealand is in a fantastic place due to their wonderful, wonderful leader. Australia is getting a bit interesting, but nothing like the fatalities of the Northern Hemisphere so far. So take care of your lungs, enjoy your cinnamon drinks and the cinnamon in your porridge. And I'll be back for the last live of the week tomorrow at 1 o'clock Sydney time, before we have a 4-day hiatus over an interesting Easter. I'll see you tomorrow. And if you want to check out previous lives, if you can't find them on my Facebook page, go to my YouTube channel. Just put in Jill Stannard Naturopath and you'll find my channel. And they're all there from the 13th of March onwards. See you soon, and enjoy the weather.